Welcome to another special edition episode of Last Week in Quantum. This is the show where we review the top news in the world of quantum computing and its impacts on the world of cybersecurity, AI, and more. I'm your host, Rebecca Krauthamer, and today we have an expert in the field of innovation and well-known thought leader in quantum, Steve Suarez. Steve is the former global head of innovation at HSBC, and I'll hand it over to Steve to talk about his other many hats that he wears.
Thank you, Rebecca. And it's kind of scary when people call me and tell me that I'm an expert in quantum. I'm an expert learner in quantum. And the funny thing is that the more I learn, the more I realize how little I do know. But I am interested in quantum, and I'm a geek. I love driving innovation, and quantum is one of those emerging technologies that just captured my imagination, and I can't get enough of it. And there's so many different components to it that are really exciting to talk about. So, but a bit about myself. I was at HSBC for 20 years. Today, I've got like three parts to what I do. One, I'm an external advisor to Bain and Company, very great consulting company. I help them with innovation management and drive emerging tech. The middle part of what I do is like a portfolio company. So I work as a board member for a lot of different companies. Some of those companies are quantum companies. I'm also an advisor to some of the companies, and I'm doing a range of stuff from time as a service all the way to sending chips to space and satellites to get connections and using QKD. I'm sure, I don't know if that'll come up tonight, but doing some of that. And then the last thing I do is my consulting company, which is HorizonX, which I help organization manage innovation and implement innovative strategies in their businesses. And I work in all three horizons, hence HorizonX.
Awesome. Well, Steve, really excited to have you here. And I think in particular, because the point of this show, right, is to um, communicate quantum to the non-quantum PhD audience, because there's only a handful of quantum PhDs out there. And so you as head of innovation and having this background in innovation, it really places quantum within that context, right?
Yeah.
Of what does innovation actually mean? What does it mean to people, to real humans, to real organizations? So excited to get your perspective on that. And with that, you mentioned QKD. And so obviously a topic near and dear to our hearts is quantum safe.
Mm.
And so, I know next week you're going to be in DC speaking at a cryptography conference. I know you got invited to the White House also,
Yeah.
which is amazing, and also great to see that the White House is paying attention. And so, yeah, just curious what you're seeing in the world of, let's start with PQC.
Yeah. No, I think PQC is very interesting, and I can tell you that I'm a big believer in this technology. I think there's going to be a lot of movement here. I'm already hearing a lot. I think last time, Rebecca, I saw you, we were both at Davos. Uh,
Yes, sir.
in the snow, talking about quantum, and I went the year before. And the year before, there wasn't very much talk uh, about quantum or PQC. And there was talk about ESG, there was talk about AI. This last year, I was amazed on how many conferences and how many people were talking about quantum and PQC. I would probably bet you, Rebecca, we go back next year. There's going to be loads.
Yeah,
You and I are going to be busy talking on panels about quantum secure and all this other stuff. And
I
quantum
totally with you. Yeah.
yeah. Quantum secure is, this is something every company is taking serious. The great example that I saw in the news, and I actually wrote about this on LinkedIn, was Apple. Apple came out with its new protocol, which is PQ3, which is a play on PQC, where they're using it for iMessage. And they're kind of future proofing themselves. And the fact that they're thinking about that now and understanding the whole capture and harvest later for is very important. And I think when companies start understanding the power of quantum computing and what it can do once it becomes strong enough, they're going to start looking at PQC and saying, "Hey, we need to put that type of initiative in." So I think it's a right time to be involved, having these conversations, understanding what it is, and I'm sure we've been talking about the acronym, and we haven't even said what it stands for. So I'm sure there's some listeners out there saying, "PQC, what is PQC?" So it's post quantum cryptography and new algorithms that will protect you against future quantum computers that'll be strong enough to actually access your data from algorithms like Shor's algorithm. Actually, one of the professors I studied under when I studied quantum computing at MIT. And very interesting. I'm actually crossing my fingers. I'm going to get to see him in 2 weeks when I'm on the campus.
Oh, that's so cool.
I'm going to
So
try. We'll see.
that's awesome. You studied under the guy, the man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's awesome. I so yeah, PQC. We could talk, all about how post quantum cryptography is a bit of a misnomer, right? It's what you need pre quantum. But I totally agree. I mean, we when we started out in this space in 2019, we had to do a lot of education around quantum, a lot of education around quantum safe. And now I talked to a bank yesterday for the first time, and they pitched me. They pulled up their deck about their quantum safe program, and they were like, okay, let's skip the ones and zeros at the same time. Let's go all the way to the because and I think it speaks to what you're talking about, Davos, right?
yeah,
We're seeing so much more traction and understanding in this space, which is awesome. And so we were talking too, you and I were talking about QKD and PQC, and I think it's an interesting topic of conversation. PQC, of course, being the encryption algorithms that you use to encrypt data,
yeah,
and those are classical algorithms, right? So
yeah.
you don't need a quantum computer to deploy post quantum cryptography.
That's
It's
right.
the anti quantum encryption, right? But then there's QKD, quantum key
Yeah,
distribution,
yeah,
and that's actually leveraging the cool properties of quantum physics to exchange keys. And so you've done some work with QKD, I think, and we were talking about how these two technologies really do interplay,
yeah.
but they're used for different things. So what are you seeing in the world of QKD?
Yeah, it's funny. I was at a board meeting, and people were kind of having a debate and trying to figure out what side of the fence you should be on the QKD side or the PQC side. And the reality, and this is my opinion, but and the reality is it's not mutually exclusive. I think you have to do both, and you have to prepare for now, but then you also have to think of the future. And so preparing for now is PQC, right? That's something you're going to have to do either way. If there's a quantum, computer or not, you're going to have to work through now. And then QKD is things that you should be looking at, you should be developing. That is quantum. That's true quantum technologies. I think the fact that quantum is in the PQC, they think that has something to do with quantum, but you're right. It's all classical algorithms. It's all classical computers. It's things that exist today. So you're not building something hoping for something to be created. And so, part of what I do and the things that I consult on is helping organizations uh, understand their inventory, understand what they have, and start addressing where there might be vulnerabilities and gaps because all organizations will have to go through this process. And that's why I find it so interesting that this is going to have a big impact. And I would love to be part, just like you guys are, uh, ahead of the game so that we can help these companies navigate this.
Yeah, it's uh, totally. I mean, we're both nerds about this, and it's last week was the NIST fifth standardization
Yeah,
conference, which it's kind of the culmination of they've been beating up these post quantum algorithms for many years,
yeah,
and it's still I think it still blows a lot of people's minds that you can fight quantum without a quantum computer, and
yeah,
there's a lot of smart people that are proving that.
yeah,
But yeah, this year's a huge year for that migration to quantum safe encryption. And as Steve said, next time you get the opportunity to update your iOS on iPhone, do so because you'll have post quantum encrypted chat or iMessage.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Even though
Well,
if anybody's going to read mine, they'll just be bored. There's nothing.
yeah. Well, so and Steve, you are you do quite a bit on quantum in general as well. I know you just joined the board of Quera,
That's right.
and they have a really promising. You probably read them in the news. They have a really promising architecture for hardware. Anything you want the audience to know about the quantum ecosystem in general this year?
No, I think. Listen, I'm excited about the progress that they've made. I've seen, being involved in quantum over the years. I'm seeing kind of the progressions and the claims, and I'm actually excited to see how fast people are making true discoveries, true changes. Every week, I feel like I see somebody else making a breakthrough. And the good thing about this, being in this industry now, you look at other people, even if they're competitors, the fact that you have people making breakthroughs across the industry only helps this industry get better, get stronger. And so we're building part of an ecosystem that eventually will go out there. And so for me, what excites me is being part of this ecosystem early on and helping do that, get that progress, being associated with some of the best companies in the world, and learning from them. And so I could tell you a lot of my learnings and in quantum, and like you said, I know about quantum is because I sit around, talk to amazing people and understand and learn from them. And I think it's been such a great eye-opening opportunity. I could tell you when I first got into this, I was a quantum skeptic. I was like, oh, it'll be 30, 40 years, all this other stuff. But when I started reading about it, truly understanding it, and getting myself educated, I started really getting excited about the bits and pieces that can be real and are being achieved. There's hype, just like any other technology. There's hype. You got to be able to separate yourself from that hype and talk about what's realistic, but also be imaginative and not close yourself down to what could be coming. And that's part of kind of what I do in innovation is thinking kind of about the future. So I'm excited to be in this industry, especially now in the beginning.
That's awesome, and that's really powerful because I think there's still quantum skeptics. Although I think a lot of people would agree that it's not a matter of if anymore. It's a matter of when.
Yeah.
But what were some of the things that really, I guess, pulled you to the other side, the quantum optimist side?
Well, when the in October of 2019, when that Nature magazine came out with Google calling quantum supremacy, I got called by a lot of boards to come and present, saying, "Hey, Steve, I hear that our security is cracked and that we need to." Protect our organization, our bank. And so part of it is I had to go, I was like, oh, okay, now I'm going to go to a board, which is stressful enough, and present about a product or a technology. I had no clue back then exactly what I was talking about. So I had to educate myself. And so part of it was, oh, well, that's never going to happen or it's not going to happen. And as I educated myself, it kind of, I learned more, and the more I learned and got hands on to some of the stuff, the more intrigued I got. So I think that was kind of my way in back in 2019 when I was kind of forced to learn it because I was asked to go and teach others about it. And
Yeah.
so if you ever want to learn something fast, go and teach it to others.
For the listeners, the 2019 Google quantum supremacy announcement was one of the first big mic drop moments, I think, in quantum computing press. And it was somewhat controversial, but it was one of the catalyzing moments, I think, for a lot of people to really start understanding quantum. And yeah, I love that. One of my dear mentors always said, you gotta teach to really learn.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can study, but you don't really know what you don't know until you teach it.
yeah.
Well, Steve, it's been a pleasure. I can't say anything, but I know Steve's got some really exciting things coming out. So everybody stay tuned and keep an eye out. But Steve, thank you for everything that you do to, I think, educate and usher in this era of innovation in quantum. Is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with before we wrap?
No, nothing. I mean, I'm easily contactable on LinkedIn. I'm really interested in innovation. I'm curious and kind of learning more. And I would encourage that if there anything people didn't understand or you felt like it was way over your head, don't get overwhelmed with the jargon, with the terminology. Go out there, learn it, and you'll start learning about this. Because I could tell you the first time I've heard people using all these acronyms, I'm like, I have no clue what these people are saying. But then the more you're into it, you understand it. It gets a lot. It gets easier to understand. Quantum is, yes, it is complex. It is difficult, but you don't have to learn everything in quantum. Understand what it is and understand kind of what it can do and what it can't do. So that's my parting comments.
That's such good advice, especially in the quantum space. I think a lot of people get deterred by some of the jargon, but the truth is, even the people who are most deep in this don't know all of the acronyms and the jargon. So don't get deterred. Quantum is for everybody. So thank
Yes.
you so much, Steve, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thank you.
I'll see you all next week on Last Week in Quantum.